It is the middle of July. You are standing in your garden with the hose in your hand, looking at the biggest, greenest tomato plant you have ever grown. It is 5 feet tall and bushy as a hedge, with leaves so dark and thick you could lose a cat in there. And when you push those leaves aside and start counting, you find 3 tomatoes, maybe 4, on a plant the size of a refrigerator. And you fed that plant. You watered it every single evening. You did everything the bag told you to do, and the plant paid you back in leaves. But here is what nobody at the garden center ever tells you. That plant is not failing. It is obeying. Every scoop of fertilizer and every evening drink from that hose was an instruction, and the instruction was grow leaves, not fruit. My Amish neighbors send their tomatoes the opposite instruction, and by August, their rows sag so heavy with fruit, the wooden stakes lean. Stay with me all the way to the end, because there is one thing my neighbor Daniel does to his tomato plants in late summer that looks like plain destruction. And the reason it works comes down to one signal a tomato plant spends its whole life waiting for. Nobody ever explains that signal. I am going to. I'm Bill, though most folks online know me as Backyard Bill. I garden on a little piece of land in rural Ohio right alongside an Amish settlement, and those folks are my neighbors, my friends, and my greatest teachers. I spent 30 years learning hard lessons back here, and for too many of those years I fought my garden with a rototiller and a shelf of chemicals I could not pronounce, and I lost. Most of what I know about growing tomatoes I learned leaning on the fence talking to my friend Daniel. Now, that jungle of leaves I described was mine. That was my garden maybe 15 years back, and I want you to understand what all that green was actually costing me. A tomato plant only has so much to spend. Every day the leaves make a certain amount of sugar from sunlight, and the plant decides where that sugar goes. It can spend it on new leaves and new stems, or it can spend it on flowers and fruit. It cannot do both at full strength. So every dollar of sugar that plant spends building another branch is a dollar that never becomes a tomato on your kitchen counter. And modern gardening, the way I used to do it, pushes every one of those sugar dollars toward leaves. The fertilizer does it, the watering schedule does it, even the way we prune or fail to prune does it. I was not growing tomatoes back then. I was growing a very expensive hedge and paying for the privilege. $20 or $30 in fertilizer, a bigger water bill every summer, a whole season of work for 3 tomatoes and a sunburn. Meanwhile, right across the fence, Daniel was doing about half the work I was doing and picking 10 times the fruit. No sprays, no blue crystals dissolved in a watering can, no evening ritual with the hose. 5 simple habits, and one of them is that late summer thing I mentioned, the one that looks like he is wrecking his own plants on purpose. Hold on to that one, because everything else I show you today is building up to it. Today I am going to walk you through all 5 habits in the order Daniel taught them to me. Before we get into the first habit, I want to tell you where all of this comes from, because these 5 habits are one piece of a much bigger system. Over the years, I wrote down everything my neighbors taught me, and it became a book called The 30-Day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol. It is the complete old world system for building a garden that defends itself from pests without a single chemical, laid out as a 30-day plan any home gardener can follow, one small job at a time. It covers the 5 reasons modern gardens attract pests and Amish gardens don't. The 5 defense layers of a garden that protects itself, the 7 foundations and the setup week, and then the full 30 days, week by week, from kill nothing, build everything, all the way to the self-defending garden. There is even seed saving, hand tools, and preserving the harvest in the back. It runs 117 pages, and it costs $17, marked down from $47. $17 against a shelf of sprays and fertilizers you buy again every single season. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you used to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time, there is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, back to the tomatoes. This first habit costs you nothing. It actually puts money back in your pocket. Habit number 1, stop feeding your tomatoes the wrong groceries. Walk into any garden center and pick up a bag of fertilizer. You will see 3 numbers on the front, something like 10, 10, 10. Those 3 numbers are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, always in that order. And here is the plain English version of what each one does. Nitrogen grows leaves and stems, the green parts. Phosphorus grows roots and blooms. Potassium grows and sweetens the fruit. So when I was scooping 10, 10, 10 onto my tomatoes every 2 weeks and topping it off with those blue crystals in the watering can, I was handing my plants a steady diet of nitrogen. And a tomato plant with a belly full of nitrogen does exactly one thing. It grows leaves. It has no reason to flower. Why would it? Life is easy, the food keeps coming, and there is no hurry to make seeds. That refrigerator-sized hedge in my old garden was not a mystery. It was well fed in exactly the wrong direction. Daniel does not buy those bags. What he does instead is simple, and it happens mostly in the fall. After the harvest, he spreads well-rotted manure over the tomato beds and works it into the top few inches of soil. I want to be careful with the word rotted because it matters. Fresh manure is too hot with nitrogen and can burn plants. Aged manure, the kind that has sat in a pile for 6 months to a year and looks like dark, crumbly soil, feeds the ground slowly and gently. If you do not keep animals, a couple bags of composted manure from the hardware store in fall does the same job for a few dollars. In spring, before planting, he dusts the bed lightly with wood ash from the winter stove, about a coffee can's worth over a whole bed raked in. Wood ash carries potassium, the fruit number. 1 coffee can per bed, no more, and skip it entirely if your soil already runs alkaline. And then the part that felt like neglect the first time I tried it. Once the first flowers open on the plant, the nitrogen stops completely. No more feeding the green. From first flower onward, if you feed anything at all, the first of those 3 numbers on the bag should be the smallest. Something made for tomatoes or blooms. The day those first yellow flowers show up, the plant has told you it is ready to change jobs. Your only task is to stop paying it to do the old one. I will say the rule once more because it is the backbone of everything else. Feed the soil in fall, stop the nitrogen at first flower. That handles the groceries. But it leaves you with a second problem because even a properly fed tomato plant will still happily waste itself on leaves if you let it, which brings us to the habit that made me feel like a vandal the first summer I tried it. Habit number 2, pinch the suckers. The first time I watched Daniel walk his tomato row, snapping perfectly healthy green shoots off his plants and dropping them in the dirt, I thought he was thinning out damaged growth. He was not. He was firing freeloaders. Here is what a sucker is. Look at your tomato plant where a leaf branch meets the main stem. Right in that armpit at an angle between the two, a brand new shoot will start growing. That shoot is a sucker. Left alone, a sucker does not stay small. It grows into what amounts to an entire second tomato plant hanging off the first one, with its own stems, its own leaves, and its own suckers. It looks like free bonus plant. It is actually a mouth. Every sucker eats from the same sugar budget, and most of what it makes it spends on itself. Now, one check before you touch anything: find your seed packet or the plastic tag that came with the plant. Look for 1 or 2 words. Determinate or indeterminate. A determinate tomato is a bush type that grows to a set size, sets its fruit all at once, and is done. Leave a determinate plant alone because every sucker on it carries fruit you would be throwing away. An indeterminate tomato is a vine type that grows and grows all season, and that is the kind that turns into a hedge. Most of the big slicing tomatoes and most heirlooms are indeterminate. Those are the ones we prune. If the tag is long gone, watch the plant. The one still getting taller in August is your vine type. Here is how you do it, and take your time with this. Go out in the morning while the plant is cool and crisp. Find a sucker smaller than your pinky finger. Grab it low, right where it meets the stem. Bend it sideways until it snaps clean. That is the whole job. No tools, no cut paste, nothing to buy. The morning matters because a crisp plant snaps clean, and a clean snap in dry morning air heals fast. If a sucker got away from you and is thicker than your thumb, use clean pruning shears instead of tearing it. Daniel keeps 1 or 2 stems per plant and pinches everything else once a week the whole season. I keep 2 stems on mine once a week, walk the row, snap the new suckers. It takes me about 10 minutes for a dozen plants, and it is honestly the most satisfying 10 minutes of my week. So to gather that up, check the tag first. Prune only the vine types. Snap suckers small in the morning once a week. Habit number 3, put down the hose. This one hurt because the evening watering was my favorite part of the day. Out there in the cool of the evening, sprinkling every plant, feeling like a good steward. And the whole time I was doing 2 kinds of damage. First, a little sip every evening only wets the top inch or 2 of soil. So the roots stay up there in that top inch where the water is. Shallow roots make a fragile plant that panics in every hot spell. Second, and this is the part nobody told me, constant easy water is one more signal to the plant that life is comfortable and there is no reason to hurry up and make fruit. A vine with everything it needs forever just keeps being a vine. Daniel's tomatoes get watered the way rain would do it if rain were reliable, deep, and seldom. Here is the routine. Water once or twice a week, not daily when you do water. Water long and slow, right at the base of the plant until the soil is soaked a good 6 to 8 inches down. Water in the morning, not the evening, and keep the water on the soil, off the leaves, because wet leaves overnight are an open invitation to every tomato disease in Ohio. Then make the water last. Daniel's beds are blanketed in straw, about 4 inches deep, tucked right up around every stem. 4 inches, a real blanket, not a sprinkle. A bale of straw costs less than 1 bag of that fertilizer I used to buy, and it holds the moisture steady between waterings, keeps the soil cool, and smothers the weeds as a bonus. One honest warning here, because I want your tomatoes whole. Deep and seldom does not mean feast and famine. A plant that swings between bone dry and soaking wet will crack its fruit and get those ugly black-bottom tomatoes, which come from uneven water. The straw is what makes this work. Deep soakings plus a thick mulch equals steady moisture with no daily labor. That is the pairing. Do not do one without the other, and keep holding on to that late summer cut I promised you, because we are 2 habits away from it now, and this next habit is where you finally get to see what your plant has been hiding. Habit number 4, strip the bottom and take the morning walk. By midsummer, a healthy tomato plant is wearing a heavy green skirt. All those big lower leaves down near the soil were the plant's first workers, and by July they are its oldest and least productive ones. They are shaded out by everything above them. They barely make sugar anymore, and they sit close enough to the dirt that every rain splashes soil, and the diseases living in that soil right up onto them. Nearly every case of early blight I ever had started on those bottom leaves. So here is the habit. Once the plant stands about waist high and the first cluster of fruit is set, remove the leaves from the bottom 12 inches of the plant. 12 inches, roughly the length from your elbow to your wrist. Take one leaf branch at a time. Snap it down against the stem or snip it with clean shears. Never take more than a few leaf branches from one plant in a single day. Give the plant a week, then take a few more if needed, working up to just below the lowest fruit. What you get for this is air. Stand at the end of an Amish tomato row on a summer morning and you can feel the breeze move right through the bottom of it. Leaves that dry quickly after rain or dew almost never sicken. Plants spaced a full 3 feet apart and cleaned up down low stay healthy without a single spray, because the dampness that disease needs is never allowed to linger. And this habit comes with the best part of my whole day attached to it. Daniel walks his garden every single morning, and I picked up the habit from him. Coffee in one hand, first light, just walking the rows slow. That morning walk is when you spot the new suckers, the leaf that yellowed overnight, the hornworm, before it is the size of your finger. 10 quiet minutes of looking replaces a whole cabinet of reacting. The garden was never supposed to be a war. Most mornings now it is the most peaceful 10 minutes I get. Now, everything I have shown you so far points the plant's energy toward fruit. The feeding switch, the sucker pinching, the deep watering, the cleanup down low. Do those 4 and you will already grow more tomatoes than you ever have. But there is a problem sitting inside every tomato plant that none of those 4 habits can fix. And it is the reason for the 5th one, the strange one, the one I promised you at the start. Here it is. A tomato plant does not know it lives in Ohio. The tomato is a vine from the warm parts of the Americas, from country where there is no winter and there never has been. In its bones, a tomato plant believes it will live for years. It believes there will always be another month, always time for one more branch, one more flower cluster, one more round of green fruit, so it never hurries. Right into September, your plant is still spending precious sugar on brand new flowers and pea-sized green tomatoes that have no chance on earth of ripening before frost. It is planning for a future that Ohio is going to cancel. The plant is waiting for a signal that its growing days are over. And in its homeland, that signal simply never comes. Around here, the first hard frost delivers the message and kills the messenger on the same night, with half your crop still green on the vine. Daniel does not wait for the frost. He sends the signal himself. Habit number 5, the August cut. Here is what looks like destruction. About 4 weeks before your area's first expected frost, and around here that means late August, Daniel walks his rows with pruning shears and cuts the growing tip off the top of every main stem 4 weeks before frost. That number's the whole trick, so I will say it again. 4 weeks. Snip the top of each stem just above the highest cluster of fruit you want to keep. At the same time, remove any brand new flower clusters, because a flower opening in late August is a promise the season cannot keep. And here is what that cut actually does. The growing tip is where the vine lives, the point the whole plant is organized around, the place all that endless ambition comes from. Take it away and the plant cannot build upward anymore. There is nowhere left to spend. Every sugar dollar the leaves make from that day forward has exactly one place to go, and that place is the fruit already hanging on the vine. The plant that was planning to live forever gets the message that the season is ending, and it does what tomato plants have always done with that message. It pours everything it has left into finishing its fruit. Green tomatoes that would have sat hard on the vine until frost ripen in weeks. Fruit sizes up, flavor deepens, because sugar that was headed for leaves ends up on your tongue instead. The first time I topped my plants, my stomach turned. It felt like giving up on on them. 3 weeks later, I was carrying tomatoes into the kitchen in a 5-gallon bucket, and I finally understood what I had been watching Daniel do all those Augusts. He was not wrecking his plants. He was answering the question they had been asking all season. And that is the heart of what Daniel taught me, and honestly, the heart of everything my neighbors have taught me. You stop fighting the plant and start speaking its language. The book is the whole system of it, 30 days, layer by layer, so the garden starts defending itself and feeding you instead of feeding the hardware store. The 30-day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol, 117 pages, $17 instead of $47. $17 once against the sprays and bags you've been rebuying every season for years. If today made sense to you, the book will feel like 30 more days of this. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So the whole method in one breath. Feed the soil in fall and stop the nitrogen at first flower. Pinch the suckers weekly, water deep and seldom under a thick straw blanket. Strip the bottom 12 inches and 4 weeks before frost. Make the August cut. Did your folks or your grandparents garden without chemicals? Tell me one thing they did below. Those are exactly the methods worth saving. I read every single one. Next time, I am going to show you what my Amish neighbors plant in a ring around every tomato bed. The 3 plants that keep hornworms from ever finding the tomatoes in the first place, and why one of the 3 has to go in the ground before the tomatoes do. Work with nature, not against it, and I'll see you in the garden.